Hello everyone, I'm Igor Pikayzen, violinist, and I'm so tremendously looking forward to return to Taiwan for two very different concerts, a solo recital in Kaohsiung on October 31st, and then a collaboration with the wonderful Academy of Taiwan Strings on November 8th in Taipei, where we'll be playing an absolute gem, the Four Seasons of Buenos Aires, otherwise known as Cuatro Estaciones Porteñas, by Astor Piazzolla, and Ysaÿe's Amity for two violins and orchestra. And I thought it prudent to talk a little bit about these two very different yet very exciting concerts coming up. And the first program, the recital, I remember when we were first discussing this program with the Academy of Taiwan Strings, there was a suggestion that I prepare an all solo and a cappella violin recital for the Taiwanese audience, which was very interesting for me. Very challenging, but also exceptionally interesting because, of course, when one thinks of violin, you usually think of a violin and piano recital, sonatas, showpieces. But as a matter of fact, violinists, we are blessed with a very wide and really incredibly diverse solo repertoire. And I think most of you, when you think of solo violin repertoire, will of course think of Johann Sebastian Bach and his 6 sonatas and partitas. Now, I will actually not be playing any Bach on this recital, but I'll be playing 5 different works, all of whom, in one way or another, have been inspired by Bach, and which would not exist without Johann Sebastian Bach 6 sonatas and partitas. I will start with the Recitative and Scherzo by the wonderful Austrian violinist and composer Fritz Kreisler, one of the great personalities of the late 19th, early 20th century. And it's also one of his earlier works, of course, fully imbued with that inimitable Viennese charm of his, and yet very, very challenging. Surprisingly for me, Kreisler, as tremendous of a virtuoso as he was, is not really that violinistic. It's also a very tricky piece, full of virtuosity, but of course full of charm and very dance-like. And I will follow it up with one of the masterpieces of the 20th century, Béla Bartók's Sonata for solo violin. Now, the sonata has a very interesting history. It is Bartók's penultimate work. He wrote it right before his death at bequest of Lord Yehudi Menuhin. And Menuhin actually wanted to help Bartók, who was really struggling after moving to the States. At the end of his life, he was also quite sick. So Menuhin commissioned from Bartók a solo violin work. And what he got in return was one of the greatest masterpieces in our repertoire. It is in 4 movements, and it is very much an homage to Bach. And it is one of the most virtuosically and musically challenging works that we have. It is an incredibly rewarding piece to play because the more you delve into it, the more you discover, but it pushes the violinist to its absolute limit. And that's what makes it so engaging to perform. After intermission, I will play a piece that's very popular amongst violinists, the 3rd sonata of the great Belgian violinist, Eugène Ysaÿe, his Ballade, which is dedicated to the great Romanian violinist, pianist, and composer, that's right, a man for all seasons, George Enescu. So we go from Bartók's Hungary to Ysaÿe's 3rd sonata, the Ballade, which is very Romanian in spirit. And you could hear some of those influences and melodies. Of course, like everything by Ysaÿe, the sonata is incredibly virtuosic, and it was also really striking for its time. Ysaÿe, like Paganini and Wieniawski before him, also pushes the violin to its absolute limit. And this is a 1-movement work that has really become a staple of the violin repertoire. After that, I will perform a piece that's very close to me personally. It is the Sonata-Monologue by the great Soviet and Armenian composer Aram Khachaturian. And as a matter of fact, it is dedicated to my grandfather. It is his last solo work. Khachaturian and my grandfather worked quite a bit together. They performed the concerto, the Khachaturian violin concerto, countless times, both in the Soviet Union and abroad. This work of Khachaturian's is dedicated to my grandfather, partly out of the love and respect of Khachaturian, towards one of his beloved soloists, but also, I believe, because Khachaturian knew how much my grandfather appreciated and championed solo repertoire. We all know his recordings of the Bach sonatas and partitas, of the Ysaÿe sonatas, of the Paganini caprices, which he performed in concert amongst other places in Taiwan many, many times. But also my grandfather championed the works of Weinberg and Bartók. As a matter of fact, he was the first violinist to play the Bartók solo sonata in the Soviet Union. So Khachaturian certainly had that in mind when he was composing this piece. And this piece, it is very retrospective. It really is almost like a monologue of a bard, of a poet. I don't know if it has ever been performed in Taiwan before, but I'm incredibly eager to bring it to the Taiwanese audience. And we will finish the program with one of the most virtuosic and showpiece works for solo violin, The Last Rose of Summer by the violin virtuoso Heinrich Wilhelm Ernst. Ernst was a huge fan of Paganini, and you could absolutely hear it in his works. He would take a simple theme, in this case an Irish folk tune, and then turn it into a vehicle to show off what the violinist can do. So hopefully that will be a nice closer to the program. I would say that the Bartók, just for the scope of the work, to make it really feel like one symphony, and just for the pianistic nature, might be the most challenging perhaps. In terms of my favorite excerpt, it is really like choosing amongst one's children. If I would be pressed with a gun to my head to choose anything, there is one moment in the third movement, the melody of the Bartók, after all this tremendous noise and all of this bombastic sort of writing, we get a melody when it comes back that is so pure and so innocent. And when it comes back, it's such an oasis, such a respite of peace, almost like a prayer, or the feeling you get after a prayer. It's so pure that it is always, my heart palpitates when I play it. Hopefully that won't get in the way of intonation or sound, but it's an absolutely magical moment in a tremendous, tremendous violin work. What am I most excited about for this recital, concerto, and this trip? I think what I'm most excited, of course, is connecting with you, the audience. It's really the reason I do what I do, is to play this repertoire that I'm so invested in and that I truly love, for people that have not heard it before, or for people that have heard it before, but perhaps in a different interpretation. So I'm really, really looking forward to bringing all of these works to Taiwan. I'm also eager to make new friends, musical friends, in the Academy of Taiwan Strings, and reconnect with old ones. And of course, I remember from my previous trips the incredible love that the Taiwanese audience has for classical music, and you could hear it in the silence, in the tension in the hall, in the amount of young people that come to concerts. It is all so reassuring and so encouraging to see. And I absolutely cannot wait for this tour that's about a month away now, and as well as to meet local students and to connect with them and to teach them and also learn from them. So I'm sure that these will be two memorable concerts in two wonderful spaces. So once again, a recital on October 31st at the Weiwing Recital Hall in Kaohsiung, and then on November 8th in Taipei at the National Concert Hall with the Academy of Taiwan Strings, with a very dear friend of mine, Hui Junlin. So I really hope to see you at one or both of those concerts, and until then, can't wait.